Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Katie, for the introduction. Good speaking to you all. So again, for today's session, we're going to start with some content, just going over what our NG-CASB solution is all about. And we're going to see some demos, including some live demos at the end of the session as well. Feel free to ask any questions. We will take all the questions towards the end, between the in between the session and the demo itself. So yeah, let's Katie, are we good to get started? Should we wait on a couple more minutes for people to chime back, or are we good?
You can go ahead and get started.
Sounds good. Thanks. Hey, so as Katie read out from the intro, the world has changed. A lot of it has been accelerated by the pandemic, and also how convenient it is for workers to be distributed all over the place. So that has resulted in a few scenarios, which is great from a productivity perspective. First is SaaS usage is exploding. The number of SaaS applications that are present in general in the marketplace and the number of sanctioned corporate SaaS applications has also exploded. If I look at my, for example, Okta Ping one today, there's at least 100 plus tiles. And it's just what I have access to, depending on which function. People have access to completely different set of applications based on what they're entitled to. And our studies show that a typical enterprise now has over 1,000 SaaS applications in usage. Some of these could be internal, some of these are external facing, some of these are off-the-shelf commercial products that we consume. So it's no more about endpoint. Everything is, there are documents that are originating and going towards the end of its life, all in the cloud itself. The second is the nature of data itself is changing. It is no more about having a secure database that was in a structured relational format, and all we had to do to secure was to secure the perimeter and so on. So sensitive data now comes in all forms. It could be a screen share, it could be an image that contains like a username and password, or somebody taking a picture of a sticky note, or just a whiteboard that has confidential dollar information scribbled in it as to sales numbers and so on. So the nature and form of data has also changed. What we also mean by that is we are conversing in shorter and shorter text. Like it's no more about long form emails. So people are just sending Slack messages, which is about a sentence or two long. That also means attackers are evolving. They go where the data is, and the new place where the data is in SaaS applications. These have now become very complex platforms by themselves with all sorts of bells and whistles. And it is important for end users of these platforms to know that these are secure operations and this is not, where a small misconfiguration could actually lead to a much larger data leakage than what the benign configuration looks like. So that's kind of what we have in scenario today. And that is obviously presenting new security challenges. First is both the number and complexity of SaaS apps is increasing, as we saw previously as well. That means we have an issue where we have unmanaged shadow IT apps that are putting application data at risk. What this means is, say if I were a champion of a product that is used by, say, a productivity tool, I just seem to think that it's the best tool that is out there for the job. I go and make a purchase and just reimburse it through the popular reimbursement tools. So I'm making a purchase through my own credit card. So it's no more going through like a whole approval process to be saying that, oh, I want to provision this infrastructure. I want central IT to manage this or something of that sort. You just go, and a lot of these are actually even freemium models. Like, it doesn't even have to be like a paid application that I actually pay through credit card and get it reimbursed. It could just be like, hey, I'm a team of about 6 people and we seem to think that, Trello works the best for us, or some other productivity tool works the best for us. I just go purchase the free tier and hope that things are okay. And people start putting confidential information in some of these apps as well. So that's where shadow IT remains. So it's no more about centrally managed IT. Like it's becoming less and less of a barrier for people to consume SaaS apps, and that is good from a practitioner perspective, but from a security perspective, it does pose a risk. And the second is, again, given that these individual champions are going ahead and making these SaaS consumption, it is also likely that they are also the ones who are configuring some of these apps. And as we saw previously, these small misconfigurations, seemingly benign, can actually potentially lead to data loss because as an example, one of the recent data leakage incident with NASA documents was due to a Jira setting, where the administrator thought, share it with everyone meant share with everyone within the organization, while in reality, it actually meant share with everyone on the internet. So all it takes is somebody for that to be able to post that link on Reddit, and everybody has that document. So the second is data is becoming harder and identified as secure. Part of it is the dimension and the way in which data is stored is changing. It is no more about structured data. It is really unstructured. Things like screenshots, whiteboard, pictures, and even contextual conversations like, hey, here you go with your password, kind of an incident. Or it could be within source code where, it's pretty complex to scan source code by itself because and you could have embedded secrets that are within source code, for example. All of this is sensitive information, which is no more just pertaining to long form documents with predefined structured formats that you could do a regex match and get. And the second is, again, real-time collaboration apps, which means more and more sensitive data is being shared, and the fact that the nature of the information is also pretty unstructured that way too. Like, we're doing whatever it takes to make collaboration better. If it means sticky notes with passwords that, just take a screenshot of, that is also changing and making it harder to secure data. And the third is about attackers as well. So A is about compromised and careless users compromised users whose credentials are stolen that could be used to take advantage of an existing SaaS application. And the second is, and the last, less common but more damaging problem is malicious insiders, which are able to directly access SaaS from anywhere. So it's no more about the organizational boundaries. You don't need to necessarily go through a firewall to be able to access most of the SaaS applications today because they are hosted on the internet, which means if somebody gets hold of the credentials, they don't really have to be at your organization or within your firewall to be able to access it. They could be in any country whatsoever to be able to access the information just through the SaaS app directly. So the good news is there are solutions that solve these problems. CASB solutions are not new. It's at least about a decade old by now. So there are CASB solutions that solve some of these problems, but not all. So what we call the first-gen CASB solutions, which are basically built around compliance. So, hey, I want to be GDPR compliant, and I want to make sure my, 5 or 6 SaaS applications that I use are protected from GDPR information. Sure, great. Here is your checkbox. You get your GDPR compliance and get going with it. What are the other options? There are commodity antivirus softwares, which talk about, okay, well, hey, we will make sure your accounts are not getting compromised or endpoints are not getting compromised because we have this anti-malware solution to be embedded within some of these commodity antiviruses, which makes sense. So they do some checkbox-based approach to say that, okay, you're compliant and you're good to go. But the question really remains, is it solving for security? Are you really trying to get data out of these unstructured information? Or things like being able to understand chat or code snippets or screenshots. So these are all questions that still remain with the first-gen CASB solutions. Yes, it's straightforward to do a regex match or a loan check for credit card to say that, okay, well, this is where your sensitive information lies. But is the problem just the same way as it was a decade ago? Probably not. And as we saw through the right reasons, why things have changed. And the last one is app policies. So some of them have posture security now, but then even those controls are limited to compliance benchmarks such as DZ stigma and so on. And the second is around they have little to be able to do access control or doing access governance largely to say that, oh, yeah, hey, this is you're able to set up deterministic rules that say that, okay, well, if the download is more than 100 or if there's more than 10 failed logins to flag. But it's not as easy to be able to do that kind of security. Either your SOC teams are getting too many alerts or you're seeing that you are actually missing out on certain things that manage to fly under the radar. So that brings us to where we are with Palo Alto Networks Next-Gen-CASB. We're calling it the most complete and security-first CASB because this has been designed from the ground up with security as mindset. Yet compliance is something, but again, compliance is the lowest common denominator that we know that it's like every solution should be able to get there. But this is really about going and beyond compliance to be able to say that we are focusing on security irrespective of what dimension of data it is. And it could be unstructured, it could be conversational, and so on, to be able to understand some of that through advanced machine learning. So complete visibility and security. So your existing investments on next-gen firewall or Prisma Access gives you visibility in line just on the wire to be able to see that, hey, these are some of the shadow IP potentially sanctioned applications that we see that is flowing in your networks. And then you go a next level further to be, once you give API authorization and we go through the workflow to be able to support and get deeper visibility through our SaaS API product to say that, oh, well, these are the data assets that everybody's creating. And in near real time, you get a notification when an overexposure or a sharing happens. We're going to see some of that in the demo today as well. And there's a posture security aspect of it. So we are able to audit all the security configuration with these apps to be able to say that, hey, these are perhaps like not the best approach to security, and you're able to click and remediate it right there without having to go through like a complex chain of emails and stuff like that. And we also have workflow management solutions, both through XOR and also natively built into the product. The next pillar is data security. So we don't just do pattern-based matches. That's something that we proudly talk about. We are able to do advanced data detection in both structured and unstructured data. And not just that, it's a common issue that is talked about in DLP engines is about false positives. Yes, we solve for false positives through our machine learning algorithms to be able to detect not just deterministically, but to be able to go a level further to say that, hey, these are seemingly benign, these are seemingly more malicious, and so on. But we go a step further to say, to actually empower the end users to be able to lead the way with remediation. So most of the end users are largely just about careless, like, if they're malicious, we have other ways to find that out, but they're just largely careless users who don't understand the security implications of some of the unsafe activities that they're up to. So the way we solve this is not by bogging the SOC with a lot of these benign or maybe potentially just mistakes, which may take a longer cycle time for SOC to be able to go back and let the user know. So we actually have ways through Slackbot and others to let the end user know that, hey, this is a violation. Do you want to take care of it right away? So then they could either delete the file or remove public sharing or do something of that sort to take care of it right there. Or to even mark that, hey, this is actually business justified, and to give their explanation in there for the SOC team to be able to see what led to it and so on. And the last one is protection from advanced threats. We integrate with Wildfire, which is our malware prevention engine for best-in-class anti-malware. So say, for example, you have one of the users have a malware that is within Google Drive, which, by the way, is not uncommon at all these days, with all endpoints by default syncing to OneDrive and Google Drive. If I have malware in my local endpoint, that file ends up getting synced to one of these cloud apps, and now your cloud app has a malware as well. So we take care of those kind of scenarios through our integration with Wildfire. This is a Palo Alto Networks product that is available both in line and on SaaS API as well. Detection of compromised accounts and also insider threats. We're going to see how our user behavior analytics engine is able to understand anomalies in behavior and patterns to be able to say what's an insider threat and how to effectively prevent it. And all of this is natively integrated with SASE security stack. So it's not just like, oh, well, there's firewall that's on one side, and then there is SaaS security, which is purely just API based. It all flows together seamlessly between our inline API and SSPM products. So that brings us to what we mean by security and visibility, right? Like, well, everybody talks about, hey, well, we give complete visibility. So we want to talk about what's exclusive over here. So comprehensive access control. So through our inline engine, which is being able to see what's happening in the wire, we are able to discover risk profile and control user actions, including upload, download on over 40,000 plus SaaS applications. We're currently at 40,000 plus SaaS applications. This is also machine learning based. Our AC engine, as we call it, the application cloud engine, is ML based. So as and when new applications come, we are able to detect that and add it to the catalog as well. So this is not just a static number. This number is growing by the day. As we detect more and we feed in information on where the security parameters with respect to some of these apps are. The next is our sanctioned SaaS security. So this is, say, corporate versions of Google Drive, GitHub, ServiceNow, those kind of applications, for instance. So we offer even deeper data protection user monitoring on 27 plus sanctioned apps. And we have near real-time connectors with modern collaboration apps, including modern collaboration apps that provide immediate identification and remediation. We see some of this in the demo as well. For examples of modern collaboration apps, like things like Jira, Bitbucket, GitHub, where source code is now being the new vector for data leakage. Like with an API key that is sitting somewhere out there, it is very possible that you're able to exfiltrate data and so on. And the last one is posture security. So we make sure dangerous misconfigurations that put data to risk are addressed through our posture security solution. So this not just looks at data and the user behavior, but looks at the app itself from a configuration level to be able to say that, hey, these are really the security best practices, and this is where you are going away from the security best practices to be able to show some of that. And it's a prevention first approach. So if we see where we're going between the inline and our API integration and all the way up to the posture, this is just hinting where shadow IT apps lie. Like, we basically say, hey, well, it is possible that your marketing team was using Asana without your knowledge, without being under the security purview, for example. And then you're able to say that, okay, fine, let me go find out what's happening. And then you onboard Asana into for example, the enterprise SaaS apps. Like Asana, I took as an example, but it could be, say, anything. It could be a Bitbucket instance that one of the teams is using by itself. So say, for example, you're able to onboard one of the 27 plus sanctioned apps that we support, and then you get deeper visibility into every single file, every single commit that's going on to the Bitbucket instance. And through our near real-time connector, you also get to see DLP analysis as and when it happens, all the way up to the end user. And let's say, for example, there's some sort of over collaboration, like oversharing that is happening to the extent that, say, for example, you're seeing that some files are now publicly exposed to internet for no reason. You're able to protect that through our posture security. So, for example, say the default setting is for a document to be shared across the company, which, by the way, is a very common default setting in file-based apps, because it is. From a file-based app perspective, it encourages more collaboration. But as an admin, you would want to restrict that to say that, hey, the default is actually just the individual user that the end user chooses to share, and not across the org. And to be able to share it across the org, they need to make sure, they explicitly call it out. So those are the kind of things, as you can see, that you see some behavior and you're able to go all the way to the posture security to say that, hey, is there a way within the SaaS app itself that I can make it happen? Or you can always use our policy engine to be able to control some of that application, some of those actions to say that, hey, well, I want to remove public sharing by default the moment I see anything public sharing. Or like I want to quarantine the file as and when that sharing happened or something of that sort, all of which you're able to do through the Next-Gen-CASB product. So same with data security. This is also within both our inline and API products as well. So you have comprehensive detection, including our EDM and OCR engine. So what we mean by EDM is it's called the exact data match. What this really does is you're able to upload a CSV of sensitive information to our servers. Obviously, it's one-way hashed, so we don't get to see what the actual data is, and you're able to do that through a client utility. So the actual sensitive data is one-way hashed when it reaches us. And you're able to say, for example, hey, these are all the employee numbers, or these are all patient health records that is very important for me to be monitored. Then we specifically look for those IDs that you had specified in the exact data match format to be able to go and see that, okay, whenever there is this ID present, then you could write policies that are even more stringent. You could say that, hey, this is a celebrity patient's data record, and I want to make sure that data, if it is exposed publicly, I want to quarantine the moment it is exposed and stuff, such things like that. So you're able to do broader patterns to say things like, hey, the moment I detect SSN, I want to make sure, like, it is maybe not publicly exposed and just warn the user or something of that sort. But for EDM, you could go even all the way more to say that, like even more stringent rules and policies. OCR, again, we saw that data dimensions and policies changing. So a lot of things that happen in the classic OCR engines, it's able to detect structured documents, W2s, and 10Ks and stuff like that very well, like in specific fonts. We have a new parallel OCR engine we have a new OCR engine that's coming from our acquisition of Gamma.ai, where we are able to detect things like extremely hard to read, even sometimes for humans, right? Like it could be sticky note with a bad handwriting, or it could be a crumpled SSN card. All of this is just people just take snapshots of it and picture and send it around. So we are able to read some of those as well, over and above just structured documents that is in PDF, which classic OCRs do. The next is ML classifiers and also on one side we have ML classifiers, and then there's on the other side, which is like, we have thousands of built-in data patterns, which largely what classic vendors have. The ML classifiers go a little bit further, like as we know, between deterministic and softer algorithm, like machine learning algorithms, it's able to see and weigh to say that, hey, this is not just a pattern match, but I understand from the context that this is more likely to be, I have a much higher confidence that this is probably sensitive information and so on. The next one is natural language processing. Again, goes back to the way data is processed and shared changed now. Is that, for example, it's all short conversation. So you need to be able to understand the context of the conversation to be able to say that, hey, this is likely a password, or this is likely an API key, because all that there is just a sequence of text if it doesn't have context. The typical deterministic engines, the way they do it is they try to look for proximity keywords to say that, hey, it should say SSN and then have an SSN number over there. Then I have a higher confidence that it's actually an SSN, including the regex match that they usually had good. But we're able to do things like understand the context to say that, okay, this is likely a password for based on the context of the conversation, how the conversation is going. That's how we do, for example, our Slack engine and so on. The next is user-led remediation. Again, I'm going to show it off in the demo. Proactive user education all the way up to the end user. So it's not just a few CASB admins that is within the organization that is really taking care of this. And that end users are empowered to remediate these incidents by themselves. The last is consistent data policy across the enterprise. So you have one single cloud-based DLP engine that is integrated with all of NG-CASB, which includes SaaS and DLP. And also there's even if you have firewall or access or Prisma Cloud, it has one single data security policy that's across the enterprise. So I'm going to pause here for a quick demo. We have about 15-ish minutes. I want to leave some time for Q&A as well. I see there's about a couple of questions in Q&A. Let's probably take that before we actually get to the demo. So the first one, on a high level, do I need more PAN firewalls than what we already have in place? So the question to that is largely a no based on capacity. So we don't do anything other than, like basically going over the logs already. The only additional requirement for our SaaS inline product is the Cortex data lake, which comes by default with Prisma Access. But if you're using firewall and you don't have Cortex data lake, we would require that as a dependency for SaaS inline product. What it really helps us do is to be able to ship data from your firewalls to the Cortex data lake as a centralized log from which SaaS inline consumes it. So largely, we haven't seen any capacity, like any reasons for increasing in capacity from the organization. Does the posture security cast the example you mentioned earlier about setting a link to everyone? So the way we do posture security is different between different apps, but for file management apps, we show this behavior. If we say that, if you see that your default sharing settings is to share to everyone, we are able to see that for file-based apps. For others, it could be, for example, in GitHub, you could have additional restrictions based on what public repository and so on. So yes, we do catch that. Okay, so going to a quick demo from where we are here right now. So I'm going to stop sharing so I can just share the rest of my screen. Okay. So I'm sharing. Yeah, I'm sharing a screen now. Just give me a second. Yeah. So here we are. I'm looking at a Google Drive document that has a few credit card numbers. This is the simplest use case. Let's just go look at anything else. We also have an image with some SSN like looking number. And I also have a spreadsheet, for instance, that has a few confidential information here and there. So I'm just going to try and make some edits in here. This is already a pretty sensitive file. I'm going to delete a lot of it to say that, okay, well, there are a few credit card numbers and that should probably be it. So let me now try sharing this, right? Like, okay, I want to see that, okay, this is something that I want to share with others. So I just want, instead of, sharing with a specific person, I just go ahead and share with all of organization, which is zero test. So or even worse, right? Like I just say, go ahead and share it with everyone on the internet. So anybody that really has this link is able to see this. If I go incognito and open this document, it would still work for me. So obviously this is not the right behavior. First thing is we catch this under our data assets. So when we go ahead and explore for data assets, as you can see, this is almost near real time. I shared this seconds ago, and you already see that in the UI. And you also see a Slack notification. I'm actually going to share my entire screen. Maybe that's easier. Yep. So you also see a Slack notification almost immediately, just with all of the data that it's matching. So I see that, hey, on G Drive, this you as Raj Srinivasan tried to do expose a bunch of information, bank account number, driver's license, social security number, and so on. So I can do a few things. I can either go click on view to see what that file really is. I can do that and see that, okay, this is really the file, and go either take care of it manually by myself to be able to say, edit this one, for example. Or I can say that, hey, this is not a violation. It's a business justified reason that I want to say it out. And within the product, you're able to customize, assign it a specific name for the not a violation status itself. Or for things like Slack messages, you're also able to do a delete right there to say that, okay, well, I want to delete the message that I sent. Obviously, we don't want to do that for files. So all that kind of behavior, you're able to do that. And it's important to note that it's all near real time. Like the moment the sharing happens, I, as an end user, gets to see that, okay, hey, this is happening through a simple bot that, the sharing happened. There's probably like an example of oversharing. So a couple other things that I wanted to show. So I'm gonna use a recorded one for this one. These are things around contextual detection for our sensitive information. So in this scenario, we're seeing that there is a public Slack channel called DevOps team. It has Arpath and Mega in it, and she's just asking Alex, hey, I'm locked out of Salesforce account. And without recognizing Alex, without knowing that this is a public Slack channel, Alex just says, "Hey, why don't you try this? This is the password, SFT 2021, whatever." So this is a public Slack channel, and the moment this is shared, obviously you get a violation that, hey, this is a contextual secret, and you want to either take care of it by deleting the message right there to go back and say that, hey, and that particular message itself is deleted. What is important to note here is that the password itself, if we took a look at what the password is shared, it didn't have any information saying that, hey, this is the password, something of that sort. He just said, try this. So we are able to look at it from the context of the ongoing conversation that's actually likely to be a password text. And we also do things like entropy analysis to be able to actually say that this is a password. Just because the previous conversation had password, it doesn't mean hey, for example, if you had said try this and hello, it wouldn't detect it, right? Because we want to be accurate enough to understand that this is actually a password. So it has to be a combination of the right level of entropy to say that this is really what it is. So the other one I want to show off is our enhanced image recognition. So this is where I was talking about our own OCR engine, which came through the acquisition of Camera.ai, where we're saying that, okay, well, your Mega is now trying to share a sticky note, which has a desktop password, right? And this is, by the way, not uncommon at all. Happens quite often between IT teams, and you get logged out of your account and you get a password and so on. So we are able to do things like overall contextual detection, which says, hey, we found a password that was in the post-it note and the file itself was detected in this case. So you can either go ahead and delete the message, or you could say that it's not a violation. Maybe it's business justified for some reason. And you go back and see that it is no more there. The particular message that was violating has been deleted. Next is around hard to read images. For example, in this case, these are sometimes even hard to read for humans. This is a social security card that is probably inside a washing machine, very, very crumpled. It's hard to read the SSN number even for me. Like the 5 products, for example, is not clear. It was still able to detect that. And what is important is it's not just the number that it detects. It's also able to see things like, hey, this is an SSN card. In this case, it picked up the number from it. It could be, for example, a driver's license with the whole card being sensitive, and we're able to detect that as well. So not just an isolation of a particular number or a sequence of pattern. And again, I deleted this here through the Slack message, and it doesn't have to be like the DLP or CASB admins issue anymore. I go try to see the incident. I go try to see the image, and it's not there now. So those are some of the things I want to show off. And there's one more, which is around hard-coded secrets. This works both in all of our source code-based repository support, like Bitbucket, GitHub, and also Jira. Jira is one of the relatively common places these days for people to be able to sharing both customer PII and also sometimes secrets, the Jira, Confluence, both places. Earlier, it used to be largely on-prem, like Confluence and Jira were largely consumed on-prem in the data center editions. Now it's just becoming more and more common for people to consume the cloud-hosted Jira. So, for example, in this file, I see that there's a private key that has just been shared in this particular Jira instance. I immediately see the alert from Palo Alto Networks that, hey, there's a GCP credentials private key that has been shared inside of Jira. And in this case, you go and remediate it manually because it's a ticket, and you want to make sure that you're actually taking care of the right information and so on. So that's largely what I wanted to show for the demo and session today. We can take more Q&As. I think there's a couple more. So are there any agents required on workstations for on-premise file servers? A great question. So we are fully cloud-based. You don't need to install any additional agents other than your existing firewall investment, either through NGFW or Prisma Cloud or Prisma Access. So we are entirely cloud-based. We don't do things, for example, like on-prem file servers and stuff like that, largely because we are seeing that more and more of the data is now originating and getting terminated in the cloud. Like Google Slide and Google Drive is becoming the new way of collaboration. Even Office has introduced Office 365, which is a lot more powerful than some of the endpoint. Like earlier, it used to be like, I couldn't really make much complex edits with the web-based tool. But even that has come a long way. We're seeing that more commonly documents are originating and terminating in the cloud. So we largely support SaaS-based applications. We do support S3 buckets and a few more that are like cloud-based storage buckets also. So we have a full list of the 27 plus apps that we support in our documentation specified as well. Sounds good. Looking at other questions here, so there's one more around applications that are supported. So again, we support different types of applications. File-based is the most popular one. So we support things like Google Drive, Office 365, SharePoint, Dropbox, Box, all of those, the common ones. If you have a specific request for any, do let us know. And in terms of ticket management applications, we support ServiceNow, Zendesk, Jira as well. And source code, again, we support Bitbucket and also GitHub as well. On SSPM side, on the posture security side, our coverage is becoming much broader. We are currently looking at about 20 plus applications that we are launching towards middle of August. And our plan is to be at 100 applications for SSPM by end of this year, our posture security management product, because there it is really about settings, and we have a good standard baseline based through our Unit 42 research and other teams that work on this that we've really set up to be able to say that, to be able to expand much more rapidly on the posture management side. Okay, that seems to be it. If there are no more questions, I'll give it back to Katie. And so I'm Raj Srinivasan. I'm a senior product manager. You could look me up. My email is RASRINIVASAN @paloaltonetworks.com. Feel free to reach out. Thank you.